Hello guys, welcome to a new session. And in this session, as I promised in the last session, we'll be facing how to actually retrieve authenticated user in our application. And the way to actually go about that is the usage of a middleware. A user will supply us JWT, supply JWT. The middleware intercepts and validates JWT. If the validation is correct, the middleware attaches current user to the current context. So, but if JWT is not if the JWT is not correct, is not valid, then we bounce the user out. That's basically how we bounce the user out. So that's basically how we are going to implement our middleware. So I'm going to create a middleware now. Go file. I'm going to call it authentication middleware. So, and I'm going to just paste this, and I'm going to copy all of this. I'm going to copy all of this and paste. So this will be authentication middleware. So the way we'll be retrieving our middleware is via bearer token route, right? So, and how do you actually inspect? How do you get the bearer token? We simply get it by inspecting our application header. So, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set response.header and set I will add a vary param to our author. This should be a string vary to our authorization header. So the reason why we are doing this is we want to make sure that our authorization header is not being cached. So let's retrieve the authorization auth header. So in order to retrieve the auth header, we are going to do the context here, the request that is coming in, the header, and get the authorization header. So let's test that. Now, there is one thing I didn't state when I was introducing us to routes. Let's create a route to retrieve authenticated user. And this will be and this will be get authenticated user. All right. So I'm just going to return success for now. Common send success. I'm going to return nil as the I'm going to send the C and I'm going to return nil as the message will be authenticated user retrieved. This will be nil, right? So let's register the route. That will be app server dot get. It will be a get request. I'll call it authenticated user, right? And the name of the handler will be handler dot get authenticated user. This should be in double quotes, right? So I'll create a request and I'm going to call it get auth user. We are going to call our post, copy the URL. Right. Now let us restart our application. Make run dev. Okay, we are getting an error. Auth middleware declared but not used. So let's go to that middleware. Print, or let me just say fmc.print auth header. Let's go. Now that we are doing that, if we come here, so you can see we are getting that response. Nice. So I was about to mention that there is something I didn't mention during the process of registering routes. If you inspect the route handler, you will notice it is expecting, you will see that it is expecting a path, the handler function, and set of middleware. So you can also supply middleware on the route level, and that is what we'll be doing. So we are going to be registering this middleware here. We are going to say middlewares, dot authentication middleware, like so. So if we refresh our app, okay, we are already printing the auth header. I'll refresh our application, run dev. The first time I hit this, you can see that it is empty. This line is empty. But if we pass an authorization header, I'll call it bearer token, and pass some token random string to it, you can see now that the token is being printed. So what we are going to do now is we are going to, after retrieving the auth token, we need to actually be sure that the auth token actually starts with this bearer. And we are going to be using Golang string package for that. So if strings dot auth header has prefix that is um starts with bearer, then that means it is correct, right? But what we want to check is for if it does not start with auth elder. So if it does not start with bearer token, we want to send return common dot send let me say, I will say invalid authorization header. And for that, okay, let's create another method for unauthorized in our API response. So I'm going to call this send on authorized response. All right, response, like so. So this status here will be HTTP unauthorized. Yes. And this message, I'll make it nullable. So what I'm going to do is if message is null, I want to set the message to unauthorized. Authorized. So this should be a string, sorry. Authorized. See, string cannot represent of person. So if message is null, Okay, let's just leave it like this. I don't want to further make this become bloated. So let's just keep it simple like so. So I'm going to go back to our middleware now. And I'm going to say common.send unauthorized response. We are going to pass in the context and we are going to pass in the message unauthorized. Or let's say, please provide bearer token, right? Please provide bearer token. So if if that went through, that is our authorization header as a bearer token, we can then go ahead to split it. So let's say authorization auth header split will now be equals to, so we are splitting the auth header where there is space, right? Because if you check what we printed to our terminal here, there is space in between our bearer and the token itself. So we are splitting it. And the first one will be the, let me just print it, fmt dot println auth header split. The first item, because the split will return an array, and the second item, let's print the second item 1. So let's refresh our application so you can see. So you see that the first item is bearer, the second item is the token itself, right? But what we are interested in is the second item. So we are now going to say access token equals to the first header part of the the second part of the header, right? So now that we have the bearer token, now that we have the access token, we can now pass the access token based on the function that we actually created in our JWT file under common. So we'll now say claims, error equals to JWT or common dot pass signed JWT access token, right? And like so. Then we check if there is an error. If there is an error, we send unauthorized, like so. And if there is no error, let us print the claims out, right? And let's refresh. Let's see what we get. Let's be sure that that line of code works. Let's go back to our Postman. So you can see that token is malformed. Token contains invalid number of segments. So the reason why we are getting this now is because we are sending an invalid token. So let's go back to our login route. Let's copy the token itself and pass it in. If we hit now, you can see, if you check our, so you can see now we are getting the claims itself. You can see the user ID, you can see this is the user object and all and all. So let's come back to our claims. Let's come back to our authentication middleware, I mean. Inside our authentication middleware, what we now need to do now is we need to be sure that the supplied access token or the claim has not expired, right? So I'm going to say if common dot, so we need a function to actually check if the claim has not expired. We are going to go back to our JWT and we are going to create a function to actually check if a claim has expired. So function is claim expired. So we are going to accept the claim like so, and we are going to get the current time. That is by getting, since we are using, remember when we are generating, we are using numeric date, this new numeric date from JWT, from the JWT package. we are going to get the current date like this, and we are going to compare it. We want to check if the claim passed dot expires at is before the current time dot time, right? Sorry, the expires at dot time. If the time on the claims expires at is before, that is, it has not gone beyond the current time, then that means if this is true, then that means this claim has not expired. So we are going to go back to our authentication middleware and say if common dot is claim expired, passing the claim, this should be plural claims. If it is true, right? If it has expired, then we need to send that the token has actually expired, right? So now that we are sure that the token is fine, everything is all right and all, the next thing is for us to actually attach the user that actually owns the ID that is associated to our claim to the current context. And how are we actually going to do that? Now I'm going to create another struct, and I'm going to create it. I'm going to call it type name. I'm going to call it app middleware. So the reason why I'm creating a middleware, I'm creating a struct is I want to have access to the instantiated DB, and I also want to have access to the logout provided for us. So I'm going to say, I'm going to create a logout, echo logout, that will be expecting this is the echo logger that I want. And I'm also expecting the DB from GoORM. So in our main file, I'm now going to define app middleware. I'm going to initiate the app middleware struct. How should we go about this? Okay, I'm going to define the app middleware struct, and I'm going to fill in the DB detail, and I'm also going to fill in the logger detail. Okay. Okay, our logger should not be null, so we'll not be using this. That should be fine now. So we are fine now. I'll call this app middleware, right? So now that we've actually instantiated our app middleware and we've supplied all the necessary data that it needs, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to attach it to our general application struct. So I'm going to create this and say app middleware. I'm going to call this middlewares dot app middleware. And our middleware, I'm going to then say app middleware like so. And now that we've actually instantiated our app middleware to be able to access the DB, so what we are going to do now is we are going to do a little refactoring, associating the auth middleware like this. We're going to say app middleware like so, app middleware by associating the app middleware. So now the way we are going to access the middleware is quite different. Now we can't access it the way we've been accessing it again. So because we've associated it to the app middle to a receiver, you can no longer just access it this way anymore. So what we are going to do now is we are going to go to our, if you look at our main file, I've attached this middleware to this main file, right? I've attached this middleware to this main file. So what I'm going to do now is we go back to our route and we say, since the receiver here, this app has access to that app middleware, we'll now say app.app middleware dot authentication middleware, right? So now this has helped us to actually attach the middleware to this particular route. And if we go to our middleware now, we can now say app middleware dot db dot how by we now have to query the user db. We need to query the user db. So in order to query the user db, we need to first of all create a user model instance. Let's say user model instance. Now say first. Now the first method is expecting the destination where you actually want to attach the data retrieved to. So that will be, we pass in the user memory, that is the pointer to the user memory, and we'll tell it what we actually want to, the condition which we want to use to get the user, and we'll be using the claims dot id. If we go to go ORM, you will see something like that, query. So you can see first user. So if you want to get the first user by a particular ID, let me see if I can look. Yeah, you can see. So this will generate a query select star from users where ID equals to the past ID here. And that is basically what we've done here. So now this will actually fill the variable that we've created here with what is retrieved here. So what happens if the user no longer exists in the database, right? So let me try something. Let me just put 1 here. Now let me put 0, or let me put some random number, and I'm going to say print fmt dot print user, right? So if you come back here, refresh our application, and let's go to Postman. Now let's see. So you can see we are getting record not found as usual, right? So that means the user was not actually found. So what we can do is we can say, let's retrieve the result, right? We can now say if result dot error, just like we did in our auth handler, where we did something like this, right? I'll just copy this. Go back to our, and then I'm going to paste this. So if the result is error record not found, but we are not going to send user not found. What we are going to say is that we just tell them that invalid access token, right? Or invalid bearer token, anything you want to actually call it. So this will be results dot error, like so. So and if the error is not of type error or record found, that is, let's say if for some reason, if results dot error is not nil, because we might actually, an error that is not of type error record found could be thrown. We still want to send invalid access token. And let me show you something. Let me say I passed 1. Let's refresh our application. What happens if I do that? Does it go through? So it actually still go through, so we are fine. But there are some situations, maybe our database is not properly configured, or something happened. It is better to be safe, to be sure that no error actually occurred, not just that the type of error that is actually returned is of type error record not found. So if everything goes well, all we now need to do is we now say c.set user. So we are setting the current user to the current context. So once we do this, we can now go to our auth handler where we have actually, remember that our route, we've associated the authentication middleware to this particular route for this particular auth handler. Using that, we can now retrieve the currently authenticated user like this user, comma, okay. So what this is going to do is it is going to, remember what we did here is we are setting the authenticated user. And what we are doing here is retrieving the authenticated user. So what we are going to do here, it will be models.user. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to assert that the supplied user is of type user model, sorry. So if the assertion is correct, if okay, if not okay, we are going to return unauthorized as well. Return common dot send unauthorized. I'm just going to call it on not authorized, because even though this should not be an issue, or we can just send internal server error, right? Let it just be send internal server error. We can now say user authorization or authentication failed. So it will be a server error because we are actually unable to perform this assertion. And from here now, we can now send the user, right? So if we refresh our application, send, and tada, we are getting the currently authenticated user. So if we check now, well, I need to go back, and because remember, I'm passing one as a solid value into the authentication middleware. So let me pass the currently authenticated user. Let me see. That will be claims.id. That is the currently authenticated user. If I refresh the application, you can see, okay, this is for login. So that the other JWT will still be valid. So you can see now we are getting the user with ID of 10, and we are getting the user with email, which was the user we actually logged in with in our body right here. So that is actually how you actually get the authenticated user from your auth token. And yeah, that is it. And I'm happy that we are actually done in terms of registration and logging in and actually retrieving a user from an authenticated route. Thank you for staying with me, and I hope you've actually enjoyed this session. I look forward to seeing you in the next session, where I will be teaching us how to actually group our routes. We need to find a way to, because we are going to be using this authentication middleware a lot, and it will not be nice for us to be replicating it in everywhere we are trying to set the users to be able to access an authenticated route. So in the next session, I'll be teaching us how to actually group our routes in a very nice way, so that um, so that our route is properly well organized. Better than this, we are going to have public routes, and we are also going to have non-public routes. Thank you. Please share with your friends, share with your family, share with your colleagues at work, subscribe, hit like, please hit like, please hit like. Thank you very much. Take care and see you in the next session.